I think we can get started. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon, folks, from wherever you're joining in. My name is Prithviraj, as you know, and I've been leading the community efforts for the LitmusChaos project. And it's a pleasure to have you all. We are back with the chaos engineering meetups. I think we see a lesser attendance, of course, because we are back after a couple of months. So I think now we'll be obviously running the chaos engineering meetups over the year. And of course, as you folks might know, why did we not be a part of, why did we not host chaos engineering meetups? That just has one reason, that we obviously were busy with Chaos Carnival as a community. So I would just like to start off this call with a little bit more on Chaos Carnival. What did we do? What did the Chaos community basically do in terms of the conference, so that you can also have access to some great content on chaos engineering. And then, of course, we'll move on to the agenda items. We have got Amit and Vedant, who will be talking about a couple of aspects from what we have updated on the LitmusChaos side. So let me just share my screen on Chaos Carnival, just give you a little walkthrough. So Chaos Carnival, as you know, obviously was the Chaos Engineering Conference. It ran for a couple of days, 27th and 28th Jan. And there were some amazing speakers. The recorded sessions are available on chaoscarnival.io. You can check out the keynotes and all the talks. It featured almost 10 talks already based on LitmusChaos. And then there was obviously there were a couple of workshops based on LitmusChaos, and then there's so many aspects of chaos engineering that was covered, that I mean, as a chaos engineer, or as a chaos practitioner, or as someone who's interested in chaos engineering, I think this conference can be unmatched, or I can say that second to none, because obviously the content available out there, the amount of experience that the speakers have brought on table, I think it's exquisite, and there's a lot of things to learn, of course. And then there were a couple of panel discussions as well, which featured stalwarts from the chaos community, folks from the New Stack team who had the pancake breakfast event. So I think this is a complete package, and this will give all the chaos practitioners out there, or all the folks who are interested, a lot of insight on what chaos engineering is. So I'll be sharing the link in chat, so you can just check it out, what Chaos Carnival had in store, and feel free to put in your comments or anything you want to share with us in terms of what we can do as a chaos community moving ahead this year. Do you want another conference, or we can do something together as a community? We would love to know the same. So moving on, let's move on to the agenda quickly. So as you can see my screen, we'll be talking about the journey from 2.0 to 2.6. What are the updates with the Chaos Center till now? And Amit Das will be covering that, so that he can just put in light to what has improved since we released LitmusChaos 2.0 last year in August. And moving on, obviously Vedant will be covering E2E scenarios, E2E test cases. He'll just take you through the E2E dashboard, and then also invite you to contribute to the same. We are obviously open source, and we love to have contributions. So let's get started. Amit, the floor is all yours. You can get started with the LitmusChaos updates.
Sure, thank you, Prithvi. Let me just share my screen. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, Amit, your screen
Yeah.
is visible.
Yeah. So hi, everyone. I'm Amit Das. A little about myself. Currently, I'm working at ChaosNative as a software developer, and I'm also a contributor to LitmusChaos. So in this session, I'll talk about the new changes that went in after we released 2.0.0. And so let's get started. So before moving to the new changes post 2.0 release, let's talk about what are the new changes that we got in after we released the Litmus 1.x. So in Litmus 1.x, we had only single experiments, like individual experiments. But in Litmus 2.x, we had a complete chaos workflow, which consists of different types of experiments. These can be either in serial way, or in a parallel way as well. And in Litmus 1.x, we that was only considered using one user. And in 2.x, we had the functionality of adding teaming. where multiple users can work on different types of projects. And in 1.x, we were supporting only single clusters where we can perform the chaos engineering. And in 2.x, we have the organization level support where we can connect multiple agents in different Kubernetes cluster. And in 1.x, we were only having the public chaos hub, but in 2.x Litmus, we have a public and we have the support for public and private chaos hub. So let me just show it to you. So in 1.x, we usually just had the chaos hub. A second. Yeah. So we had this kiosk where all the experiments are stored. So for example, if we go here, we just have the kiosk experiment here, the RBACs, this sample kiosk engine here. So earlier in 1.x, we just used to take this manifest. We can see it's just a kiosk engine manifest, and we used to do a kubectl apply on our clusters. But in 2.0, if we go to our kiosk center, we can see that we can construct a complete chaos workflow with these configurations. So if I go here and if I click on edit YAML, I can see a complete workflow is here. Though there is no artifact or no experiments currently here, but once we add an experiment, we can see an overall workflow getting generated. So for instance, if I compare it with this is a pod delete experiment. So we can see there are few components over here, like the chaos experiment, and similarly we have the chaos engine. But if we do it with the chaos center, we can see a complete workflow getting generated that has all the characteristics. We have the chaos experiment in this, and similarly, we also have the related component, which is the chaos engine. So this was one of the major changes that we got in with the 2.0 release. And moving back, uh, there was one more change, like it was only CLI supported, like we just used to do the kubectl apply. But now we have a CLI and also GUI, which is the Chaos Center. And we also have a CLI named as LitmusChaos, which allows you to connect multiple agents on different places. So we have also enabled the functionality of GitOps, where you can use Git as a single source of truth. And similarly, we have with Chaos Center and Litmus 2.0, we have also introduced a method of scalability. And apart from this, we also have added the additional support of interleaved monitoring and analytics as well. So currently, if we go to Chaos Center, we can see a section over here, which is the observability, where we can connect multiple data sources and we can also view the statistics of the workflow that we have executed. So these were few of the major changes which were brought in with Litmus 2.0. Now, since 2.0 was released around like 6 to 7 months back, so we have added some more changes and some more improvements in our Litmus Chaos and Chaos Center. So now I'll be going through all of these changes, the major changes which went in couple of months back. So starting off with the Chaos Center changes. So we have improved the probe additions in workflow. So let me try to show it to you. So I think you must be familiar with these screens and how the flow works over here. So let me just start and create a workflow. Let's take the pod delete for an example. And now I'll try to add a probe over here. So yeah, so here is the how we can like add a probe. We can define the steady state of the application, and if we click this button, we'll get a like pop over to add the different probes. And we currently support 4 types of probes, which are HTTP probe, CMD probe, KTS probe, and the prompt probe. So I can provide all the required information here. Like I provide the time of 10, the price is 5, interval is 2 seconds, cooling interval is 2. Initial delay is 5, and similarly I can provide a URL that I want to check, and I can select the things got the skip verification. I'll set a required timeout. I'll select the criteria over here, and I'll select the response over here. So I can now add a probe. So if we click on this show the details, it shows all the details that I've configured right now, and we have all the details over here. So earlier we did have the option to edit the probes. So like if you want to edit the probe and I want to make some changes over here or in the criteria, I have to delete this probe and add the probe again. But with some new advancements, we have like added this option to edit the probe, and we can go here. We can see all our details over here. And if I want to make anything, I can like change it to 400. I want to change check the status of 400. I'll edit the probe, and if I click show details, I can see that the configurations has updated over here. So this was a change that we have added. We got some requests from the community as well to improve our probe edition. So we have worked on it. And moving on, yeah. So we have also updated the tune workflow section. So if I go back to that particular screen where I can configure all my experiments, I can see that we have a few changes over here as well. So earlier we only had to support to add experiments, but with some new updates and new workarounds, we have also added a functionality to edit the sequence. So let me try to add one of the experiments. I think my chaos hub got disconnected. Yes. Yeah, so it got connected, and I'll just get started with doing workflow screen. Yeah, it's here. Let me try to add a new experiment. Yeah, so the pod delete is added, and I'll add one more experiment, and I'll add the container experiment. So yeah, so some new changes in this screen were like we have added the functionality to edit the sequence. So we can see that these experiments are currently in a serial way. So if I want to run them in a parallel way, I can just drag this container kill icon, and I can save the changes. And this should be reflected over here as well in my manifest as well. So I can see that these two experiments are currently in a parallel way. And apart from that, we have also we have got some requests from community as well that they were getting a bit confused with this reverse schedule option. So like their chaos engine was getting deleted, but some workflow related pods and some garbage pods were still getting stored in their Kubernetes cluster or in their namespace. So to remove that confusion, we also added a advanced option to tune their workflow. In this, we have a few options like selecting node selector, which selects like all the pods which need to be scheduled in a particular node. We have added the toleration option, so we can provide the different types of parameters which are required in tolerations. And we have also added a cleanup chaos workflow pods. So with this pod GC strategy, once your workflow is either completed or once your workflow is either has been successfully executed, all the workflow related pods will be deleted so that there will be no garbage pods present in your cluster. Similarly, in this reverse schedule, this will actually delete your chaos engine and all the chaos related pods like the runner pods and the experiment pods, etc. So these were some of the changes that we have added in this tune workflow screen. So you can also delete your experiments from here, or you can also edit your experiments from the screen itself. So yeah, this was one of the changes that we have added, and we have also added agent upgrade feature. So with this feature, like currently I'm on 2.6.0 version, and I have a self agent connected here. So if Litmus 2.8.0 arrives, but I'm still on a older agent, so I have the support to update my agent with the upgrade tool. Currently, since I'm the agent and the Chaos Center are on the same version, I'm not getting this upgrade option. So easy way to upgrade your agent option is also available now. And one more security feature that we have added was some RBAC checks were missing in some of the APIs. So like in front end, if you see in the UI, if you see like we have different owners here, like we have different RBACs for owners, for editors, for viewers. So there were few instances where a viewer was also able to create workflows or do something which was not allowed to him. So this was also fixed till 2.6.0. And we have also added a support to upload functionality. So in earlier versions, while uploading a workflow, we were only able to upload your workflows. But we got some requests from the community that they want to test some basic Argo workflows as well. So now we can also upload some basic Argo workflows. So let me show the workflow I will try to upload. Yeah. So this is not a chaos workflow, it's just a basic Argo workflow. Since we can see there are no chaos experiment or chaos engine present in this workflow. It's just a diamond workflow where a few nodes will get executed. Like we have the task here, A, B, and C, and D. So this is just a basic and a plain Argo workflow. So earlier, while uploading a YAML, there were a few checks which were going on here, like it checks for the chaos experiments, it checks for the chaos engine, and if the YAML does not have either of them, it shows an error. But now we have added the support for basic Argo workflow system. So I'll try to upload this one, and I'll click next, and I can schedule it now as well. So I will schedule it. So this has started executing. I have already executed this workflow. So let me just show you. Yeah. So this is the diamond workflow I was talking about, the basic Argo workflow, which consists of multiple number of nodes. So instead of chaos workflows on Chaos Center, you can also try out different basic Argo workflows as well. So this was also a change we added. So we have also a few of the users were facing some issues with Kubernetes 1.22.0. Like we know that with the Kubernetes update, there were some breaking changes. So some of our users from the community were facing some issues. So all the components of your center now support Kubernetes 1.22 as well. And we have also added the IPv6 support. And apart from that, we have also added some new tests in the pipeline for Pure Center. So the workflow creation steps that I've shown here. So these are actually tested on a regular basis in our ETL pipeline and other functionalities as well, like the chaos of connections, the observability, etc. So moving on, we have also added a support to skip the SSL verification. And on the server side, we have also enhanced our server logs for better debugging. So this was one of the community requests that if there comes an issue, so they were not able to debug it properly, to improve the debugging and the logging, better server logs are basically enhanced. And one more important change that went in from 2.0 was like migration of the project collection from Litmus to auth DB. So let me show our DB collections over here. Yeah. So this is the DB collection that is shared in your center. So we can see that we have an auth collection with auth DB with project and user collections. Similarly, we have the Litmus with different types of collections, the cluster collection, MyApp, and everything. So earlier, this project collection used to be in the Litmus database. So that was causing some latency while calling the authentication APIs and other APIs. Since if you can see that in project itself, we have some different members list, and these are basically directly associated with the user collections. So while querying a user collection, we like do different fetch calls from multiple databases. So it was increasing the latency of the APIs. So to fix that, we have added we have migrated the project collection from Litmus to auth DB. So in the auth now we have the project and users. So it will actually be very efficient to use the auth APIs, and the latency will be pretty much low. And the authentication server has also been refactored to increase the efficiency. Yeah, so these were some of the major changes that went in with Chaos Center. Now moving on to some Litmus Chaos updates that required some changes. So moving on, like we have some enhancement in the CMD pros to run pros with the host network. So if I go here and select the CMD Pro, you can see that there were some of the options were not available earlier. So click there and I try to add the CMD Pro. So we can see that earlier in the source we were only supporting the inline source, but now we have the option to provide an image or add a host network as well. So this support has been added. Along with that, we have enhanced the error handling in the chaos operator for chaos engine, and there were some issues in the chaos engine and chaos results where there were some issues with the nil check. So these have also been fixed. And apart from that, the images that we're using in Litmus components or in Litmus tool are now secured with Litmus hardened Alpine based images. And these can be checked in the in our release note system. You can check how the hardened Alpine based images work. And one of the major changes we got in after 2.0 was the E2 pipelines to monitor different pipelines and of the different components. So if I click here, I can see a E2 dashboard over here, and it will I think take a few minutes to load like. So we have the E2 pipelines for all the workflows, and we have some nightly build system, some nightly component pipelines, and we have infra level testing as well, like the GCP test, pod level test, the VMware level test. And if I want to see, I can also see the current status, like this failing. So we can probably take a look at this failing. It is in successful state, means that all the components are working fine here. And if I want to go in detail, I can click this go to details, and I can see that the complete test coverage here, like currently we are tested 60% of our workflows, and this shows a complete real-time view of how many pipelines are currently getting running and what are the statuses of our pipeline job. So if you want to take a look, you can like use this URL litmus e2 slash dashboard. I will show this in the chat. And apart from that, we have also introduced the pre-alpha version of the Litmus N agent. So basically, N agent is a platform generic daemon agent that can remotely inject faults on an OS scoped resource apart from the default Litmus experiments. So currently, this is in a pre-alpha stage, and once we do some more testing, we'll just release this N agent for you guys. And some other major changes were major additions were the additions of new experiments, and not only the KTS experiment but also some non-KTS experiments. So a few of them are also like the AWS AZ experiment, VM power of experiments, and some experiments from the Azure, like the Azure Dislogs experiment, and some more experiments which can be viewed, which can also be viewed in the yourself. So you can probably go here and also take a look over here. Like we have the different categories, and in Azure you can see all the available experiments. So yeah, so these were some of the major changes that went in from Litmus 2.0.0 to 2.6.0, and we are also currently getting all your feedbacks from the community, and there are a few issues in our GitHub repository that we are currently working on. So thank you guys for trying out Litmus Chaos, and in case you face any issues or any you want any feature enhancement, you can definitely create a ticket or an issue on our GitHub repo. So we'll probably take a look and start working on it. So yeah, Prithvi, I think that was all from my side as part of the updates.
Thanks a lot, Amit. Thanks a lot for providing us with some amazing updates. I think I'll open the floor for questions so that anyone having any questions can ask Amit the same, and then we can move on to the next agenda item. So do we have any questions?
Hello, this is Pratik here. So my question is regarding the API calls for this workflow to run from the APIs. Okay, so we have been running some of the custom workflows, and we were experimenting with the APIs.
Yeah.
But what we see is to run any custom workflow or any workflow, we need to convert those YAMLs into JSON and then escape the namespaces and some of the escaping characters we need to do. After all those conversions, then we have to run through the playground where the chaos is installed. From that playground, we have to run it using some of the methods.
Yes.
So, is there a way where we can directly, kickstart the workflow or trigger the workflow from API request? This conversion doesn't, it's not easy, and we have to rely on the third-party applications for these things, and it's not that user-friendly, I would say. So, is there
Yeah.
a way or implementation that's coming through?
Yeah, thanks, Pratik, for this question. So, actually, the subscriber or the agent that we have, so it's usually takes the input in a escaped JSON format. So, like you have actually a good requirement because if you want to use these APIs in a pipeline, then you have to like convert the YAML into a JSON and then JSON to escape it. So, I think that's a good requirement if you want to upload a YAML directly and use YAML format instead of these steps. So that's a good requirement. You can probably take a look. Pratik. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for the request. Yeah.
And the updates on this API requirement, where we can follow up on these requests. I
Yeah,
can even raise a issue if you need.
yeah, you can raise a issue in our GitHub repository itself, and I'll probably share you the release notes where you can go through all the changes that I just told. These were some of the major changes that went in through, but in the release notes there are in-depth information of the changes so that you can catch up with the API changes as
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
well. Yeah.
Hey Pratik, so like in case like that is the way that we do right now through the API, but in case for now, in case you're looking for some alternative, so there are some ways that you can achieve it. So for example, like in case you are doing this in your pipeline, right? So maybe the cases, the workflows that you are running are actually like every time you are running the same workflow. Maybe if that is the case, then you can also make use of the API that is redundant chaos workflow, so that actually like reruns the same workflow. So that is one thing. But on the other side, like if you are running the like completely a new workflow every time, so there is one more way that you can do is like currently like that there is an API that is we know that for that we have to go through that JSON and then escaping, right? But then other way is using GitOps. So like you can have one GitHub repo configured for your chaos center, and like in like using GitOps, what happens is that there is a component like the server component, so which actually reconciles on the GitHub's repo. So if you just upload your git workflow into your GitHub repo, it will reconcile that and run it for you in the cluster, and that same workflow will also be made available into the UI.
Okay. I would like to try that out. Yeah. I'll get through it. Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you, Vedant.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Amit. Thanks a lot, Vedant. Do we have any other questions?
Thanks, Pratik, for this thing. Probably you can put a request, and also I just pasted one more issue on the Slack on this
Yeah,
chat.
yeah, yeah, Rajesh, yeah, I got it. Thank you. Yeah.
So
Sure.
this one we are trying to work on. This way we can run it through Litmus CTL itself. So probably this should be available in next couple of releases or like next in the
Okay,
coming
thank you.
release.
Sure.
All right, folks, I think we can move on to the next agenda item. I would invite Vedant to come up and talk about the E2E dashboard scenarios and test cases. Vedant, the floor is all yours.
Yeah, so thanks, Ricky. So, hey everyone, this is Vedant Shrotria. A bit of introduction about me. So, I work as software development engineer at ChaosNative and also a core contributor at LitmusChaos. So I will be giving a little demo about the API. So I will be using the same API that just we just talked about, the chaos running the chaos workflow through API. Then we will also look how currently we are approaching, testing APIs in our, E2E workflows. And then we will also talk about what we are, thinking about the future aspects of those test cases. So I will just share my screen. Yeah, I hope it is visible. So firstly, if you have already, run workflow through the UI, you already know you have to go through the, complete different number of steps to, configure your workflow, selecting your agent, and then scheduling that workflow, right? Now uh, I will be using this same API that we just talked about. So create chaos workflow, and then what just Pratik and us we talked about, what is the problem there, we can also check that. And then yeah, we will also check how we are approaching testing these APIs as well. So firstly, as a beginner, right, in case you are just starting with our APIs, and first thing you should be looking at is our API documentation that we provide. So first thing that comes in our mind, right, we have already set up the chaos center, and then we want to run the chaos workflows, right? We also have our agent connected. So what we can do is we can go into our documentation and come here and check the chaos workflow. So there is an API that is create chaos workflow. And like in this documentation, we provide you with the mutation that you can use, and sample input that you can use, and then there's a sample response that is given there, so you can match your response that is coming for your case, right? Now like you can look into the different inputs that we're providing here, and then the query that the mutation that we have. So for now, what I have done is, like, I already have created this I have already installed chaos center and have the playground ready with me. So I will just to show you the setup that I have. So this is the GKE cluster, and I have installed chaos center on this cluster. So and the agent that I will be using is the self agent. So if I just go and check the port in my Litmus namespace, so I should be seeing the control plane component as well as the execution plane components in this output of this command. So I can see that there is an exporter operator, and we also have a front-end server and MongoDB running here, right? So now firstly, if you look at running the workflows through the API, we need some of the things, right, for running the workflow. So like obviously the first thing that we will be needing is the workflow manifest. Apart from that, we need the project ID. Why we need the project ID is because we want to run some workflows, but that workflow is going to be a part of a project, right? So we will be needing a project ID. And then you can also have multiple number of agents connected to your project, right? So now you also need one more thing, that is cluster ID, like in which agent you want to schedule that workflow, right? So we will be needing the cluster ID. And then there are some other fields, that is description, workflow name. And then in your workflow manifest, there will be some experiment. So you need the name of the experiment and what weightage you want to provide. And then there is one field that is custom workflow, that is there because if you go into the UI and try to schedule a workflow, so this is just we are selecting an agent, and then on this screen we are selecting which type of workflow we are going to schedule. So it can be a predefined workflow, it can be some workflow which you have saved as a template, then it can also be a custom workflow, and also can be a uploaded workflow. So all the apart from the predefined workflows, all these three options are considered a custom workflow. So in the API, when you are scheduling the workflow, if that is not a predefined workflow, you will be providing this as a is custom workflow as true. If that is a predefined workflow, you can provide it as a false as well. So that is there. Now coming to the inputs, so project ID. Firstly, the project ID, how you can get that. So if we are already have the setup ready, you have got the access to the UI, you can go to the this UI and get the project ID from here as well. Or I think it might be available in settings. If we check here, or is it here? Let me check this. Yeah, so it is available here, right? So, so we can either copy it from here, right, in our playground, or there is an API for it as well. So, but now, as you know, Amit just gave an update. We have migrated our project DB from Litmus project collection from Litmus DB to the authentication DB. So that API is no longer a GraphQL API. That API is now a REST API. So we can just go into the Postman, and this URL. If you see, like, in case you are using like Ingress, you can use just the front end URL, and then there is a route that is /sort, and then this route will be there, list projects. I have what I have done is I have changed the service type from node port to load balancer. So I got the IP for that port for that service. So I am just using the external IP and the port. So external IP is this one, and for the authentication server, the port will be 9003. So that is the one that we are using here, and then we are providing just the list projects. So now the question comes in, like, in this route, how will the server know, like, for which user you are expecting the list of projects? So here we are providing a token. So I have just copied this token from the developer tools and provided it here. So when I provide this token, the backend is going to fetch the user ID from this token, and then it is going to give all the projects which are part of this user ID. So in the response, or I can just run it again as well, there is not a problem. So in the response, as you can see, I'm getting an array of projects, and in that array there is only one project. So I only have one project. So I can just take this ID and copy it here, right? Now next thing comes in, that is cluster ID, right? So cluster ID, how are we going to get that? So cluster related APIs are all present in the GraphQL server. So we will be remaining here. We are not going to go to the authentication server. So we can come in the cluster, and there's a query, it is list cluster, right? That is a get cluster. So here we are providing this example for the query, and then there is a inputs that you can give, and there is a sample response that you will be receiving, right? Now I already have that with me. So here I have the query with me, and for this now, if the question comes in, like, for the get cluster, what are the things that we need? So we only need the project ID, right? We need which project, for which project you want the cluster list of cluster, and also one more thing, this is a thing that we found using our test cases. Like, get cluster was working, but just by giving the project ID. But as a user, or I would say, if you look at a security aspect, you want to get name of the cluster in a project only if you are the part of that project, right? So now in this case, you also have to provide the authorization token as a part of your HTTP header, right? So now you have everything in your place. You got the project ID. The cluster type is optional. You can provide that. Like, there are only two values that you can provide: internal or external. So internal is for self agent, external is for the external agent that you have connected by yourself. So I'm currently skipping this. It is not a required field. The required fields are given by this epsilon. So if that is provided, then only apostrophe, then only you will have to give it. Otherwise you can skip it. So I'm only providing the project ID and the token that is mine, and I can just run this query. So it will give the clusters which are present in this project, of which I am the member of that project. Now why is it giving only the cluster name and cluster ID? Because I only asked for those. Now what are the things that you can ask from this query? There are many things that you can ask. They are project ID, they are description, platform name, access key, is it registered, or is this cluster confirmed, is this cluster active, or how many schedules have been present on this agent, how many workflows are running on this agent, and many other things, right? Now we only need we only needed, for our purpose, we only needed the cluster ID. So we got a cluster ID, we can copy it from here, or if you are running it in the pipeline, you can just save it in a variable and again use it in your different query, that is this one, create chaos workflow. So we have got our project ID, we have got our cluster ID. Now the question comes in the workflow manifest. So now workflow manifest, it's up to you how you want to create. You can create it manually in your editor, or for example, now what I will do is I can use the UI to create that workflow for me, right? So I will just put it here. Yeah. So first, like, this is the same thing that we did in the API as well. We are selecting one agent, we are selecting one cluster ID. Now we are coming in here, we are selecting, is it a custom workflow or not? So we are making it true or false. Then we are moving forward. We have to provide some details here. So what is a workflow name and description? So we can just put it pod delete and description, according to your, use case, you can provide anything. Then moving forward, if I click on next, so by default, like you can take it as a a little walkthrough of this UI as well. So by default, you are only getting this one step, that is install chaos experiment. So if you go inside it and check, is there anything that you can make use of? So currently you can see there's only one step, that is install chaos experiment, and even that step is not doing anything, right? The artifact is completely empty. So currently this workflow can't do anything. It will just it can only be scheduled. So let's go and take some experiments. So what I will do is I will take this spot delete experiment and take that and save it for me. So yeah, now as you can see in the UI, I'm having two steps. And if we also go into the YAML, now you will see that there are two steps, right? There is one for installing experiment, then there is one for, running the chaos experiment, that is pod delete. Now we have got this experiment manifest here. So this is like, a default configuration of that experiment, which defines that experiment. And then there is one that is chaos engine. So this is the configuration that as a user you will be providing, according to your use case. So you can configure these things, and in case you want to configure some other things, you can always check the documentation. Every env variable is provided in a documentation for every experiment, so we can check there. So we will just save it. Now we can just disable the revert schedule for now. And then what we can do is we can now the part comes in where what we were discussing just now before this demo, the where we convert it into JSON and then we escape it, right? So let's do that. So I'm going to just copy it from here and put it into an online editor, right? So we have to provide it here. It will take some time and convert that here, right? So we got our workflow. Now let's copy it, and then there is one. Now it is converted into JSON. Now we have to escape it, right? So we have to convert it into an escaped string. So which is the expected input from our server. So this is the expected input from our server currently. So that is something that we discussed. We will be working on how we can optimize it more. So we provided it here, right? Now while you are working on API, there is one more thing that we have to make sure. So what is that? We'll now see. So one thing, that is the workflow name. So for example, let's just do that just to show you. If I provided what delete, right, and I provided it that as well in the UI as well. If I click on run for now, it will give me an error that the workflow name is not actually matching. Why is it not matching? Because if you see in metadata.name, if I go here, it is having an hash appended to it. So I can just go ahead and remove it, but I already have run one more workflow with the same name, so I can just change the name to pod delete -1, right? So now we have got the workflow name, we have got the workflow manifest, we have also got the cross syntax. We can keep it empty because we want to run it now. I don't think you will be waiting with me for half an hour or 1 hour, right, for seeing the recurring one. So now comes in the experiments, right? Okay, it is now was I disconnected?
No.
Okay, it just said that now participants can show your screen, see your screen. I thought, okay. So now as you remember, I had only added one experiment, that was pod delete, right, in my manifest. So I can just go ahead and add that experiment in the weightages array also. So this is the experiment name, and now we have got the weightage. Why am I providing the weight as 10? Well, I have full confidence in my application that it is not going to crash, but who knows, right? As a software development engineer and SRE, you should be having full confidence in your application, right? So now we have got everything. Our workflow is custom. Everything is in place. Project ID, cluster ID, everything is in there. So we can just run our API. So it is returning it as the workflow metadata. It is returning. Now let's go to, is it actually scheduled? Let's verify that, right? So we are coming into the UI. Okay, so we got our workflow running. It is running. We can check that in the UI. And in the schedules also, we can check if that particular schedule is present in the table. So let's wait for it. I have yeah. So for delete one it is present here, right? So this was a demo how you can schedule your workflow using API, a complete new workflow. Now, as we discussed, there are other aspects as well, using GitOps or using Redund. So like what I was talking about is like you already have scheduled this workflow, right? Now there is a button that comes in, that is Redund schedule. So this Redund schedule is also using an API, that is Redund chaos workflow. So if you go into the documentation and check that API, so there is a Redund chaos workflow which only needs the workflow ID, right? So as a just for your convenience, you can run these run your workflow using this method as well. Another method is using the GitOps. But yeah, like that feedback we also be getting it on the attention, and we'll be working on that. So this was the demo around how you can use APIs to run chaos workflow. Let's now discuss how we are approaching the test cases for the APIs, right? So I will just open this. And so yeah, firstly we will be also talking about the contribution to this repo. So we are maintaining all our E2E test cases as well as the API test cases, as well as the experiment related test cases. So whatever the experiment you see, right, the even the KTS related experiment, non-KTS related experiment, or for all those experiment, there are different pipelines here, and all those pipelines run different cases, test cases. So what we are interested in currently is the chaos center related test cases. So that is present in this folder, that we are using Cypress framework for running our E2E test cases as well as the API test cases. So I will just showing the same using my editor. So I hope the font size is good. I will just make it a little bigger. Yeah. So in the Cypress folder, there is a small, like by small c, there is a Cypress folder in case in which we are maintaining all our test cases in this folder, integration folder. So where we have API test, then there is a basic setup which completes the login and get started tests, and then there are parallel tests. So these parallel tests constitute the account setting related tests, community page related tests, creating workflow. So creating workflow actually constitute of different ways how you can create a workflow. So you can create a workflow like as a custom. So this one is using MyHub. Then there is a workflow that you can use using GitOps. Then workflow scheduling using predefined workflows, using recurring way, using templates, using by uploading a workflow. Then they are coming in the workflow CRUD operation. So workflow CRUD operation is simply the operations that you see in the UI. So like for example, rerunning a workflow, or deleting a workflow, or downloading a manifest, saving a template. So these are like CRUD operations. You can also terminate a workflow if that is running, right? So these are the things that comes in the CRUD operations test cases. And then there are different other test cases that we are maintaining. Then as Amit also updated from 2.0.0 to 2.6.0, we also have enhanced the test cases in terms of by adding test cases for configuration of dashboards. So that is also automated. And then there are test cases for adding data sources and deletion and configuration, and validating different information there. Then there are using MyHub and routes, different routes of list statistics. So these were the E2E test cases, and what we are interested in are the API test cases, right? So API test cases, like this effort we have just started. Currently, like these are not in a pipeline, but we are using them manually, because once these tests are stable and a bit less flaky, we will be having them inside the pipeline as well. Currently they are not automated. So like with the efforts that we have currently, we have implemented test cases for two features. So there are user related operations, then there are MyHub related operations, and these two different categories comes into different API server as well. So one is from the authentication server and one is from the GraphQL server. So in authentication server, like we are making test cases with respect to the user related tests. So one is just simple checking the status of the API server, authentication server, and then there are some other test cases I'm checking the login API. So with by giving like for example, if you see in this test case, we are checking the body should have an error. Why it should be having an error? Because if you see this is a login API, right? And in login API, only giving the username isn't going to work, and like we should be giving the password also. but now you could have given the password as empty, so it would have written an error, permission denied or something like that, or user doesn't exist, or authentication failure, but you didn't even give the password, right? So the body itself is incorrect. So in that case it is going to give you an invalid request. So that those type of checks, these are the negative checks that are there. Now without username, with incorrect password, and different aspects of these test cases are there. Now just to give you how these tests are running. So as I said, like we are using Cypress to run these tests. So if I just go here and come in this Cypress directory and run these tests, so there are two ways that we can run, using UI or using the terminal. So there is a CLI way as well. So instead of open, we can just write npx cypress run, and that will run the same test in terminal. So as you can see, this is opening a catalog for all the test cases that we have. So you can go ahead and run any test you want to run. So what we are interested in is the API test. So I will just show you how user related aspect tests are currently running. So before that, let me show you a configuration as well, right? So how is it going to go there and test the different aspects? So firstly, it needs the URL of the authentication server, right? So we are providing a front end URL, right? And then we are providing a auth URL. So because our front end is having the nginx configuration, so if just go and put /auth, you will be reaching to the authentication server. So it will be appended to this URL. Now because like you are going to do a login, so if you see in the test cases, what we are doing is we are providing the /auth, so cypress.env. So this env will be /auth, and then endpoints.create user. So this object endpoints, where is it actually? So if you go into the fixtures and if you come in and check the authentication endpoints, so these are different endpoints which currently we are maintaining it like this. So yeah, there is one more aspect to it. Why are we maintaining it like this? Like because in the front end also we are maintaining the same queries and mutations like the same way. So this will help us in scalability and maintainability of the test cases, and as well as the queries, because if something changes in front end, we can just go ahead and have the same change in our test cases. So with that, we will be able to maintain it in a better way. So queries and these are coming in the GraphQL folder, and then there is the authentication file which contains all the authentication endpoints. So that's how we are doing making queries to the endpoints and doing stuff. So now let's go ahead and click on user spec. So it is going to run the tests there on our authentication server. So as you can see, now it has started going through the login API. So it is checking different test cases that can be there. Now like this will run like these test cases, it's not like that like we have just written that script and it is done. It's not done. Like like test cases, the cases cannot be completed at any time, right? You can always have a new test. So it's like we have a set of tests, and whenever we are getting a new test in our mind, or there are some community members who are approaching with a query, and that can also be converted into a test case, we can just come here and add that, right? So we like with that, we are maintaining our a kind of catalog of all the test cases here. So as you can see, currently it is running, and it will take some, yeah. So all tests has all test cases have finished now. So these were the things. Now in our test cases, if you see, what are we actually checking here? So if you see, like as this was the negative test case, so we are only checking the error and all. But if it is a positive test case, we might also be checking the response, what response we are getting, and depending on that, we are also checking here the status and all. Now in these test cases, there is one more thing. If you see, what is that is there is a pre-setup that we have to do, right? If like for example, for every test cases there can be some conditions, right? Like for example, if you are testing a login functionality, you need that user should have been already created, right? So currently how are we doing that? We are maintaining a currently there's a function security check setup, and which actually does this setup for us. We create two projects and some users for us. But doing the same thing, and like we are using the APIs, our APIs for doing the same thing, right? But now, like this is fine, but if you look at the future aspects of it, like having 30, if you like we just saw, right, we had 39 number of tests. So having those 39 number of tests and running it again and again, it is going to slow our test cases, right? So as a future aspect of it, what we are thinking is, instead of doing it, using it using APIs, what we will do is we will use MongoDB seeding. So instead of going through all the APIs and doing these things, because like we already know, we have our test cases for creating a user through API, we have our test cases for creating a project through API, right? So why to go through this process? We can just do the MongoDB seeding, right, for our conditions. So that is a future aspect. And how are we thinking of approaching that is, like in Cypress, we get a function that is task. So in task we can provide a Node.js function which will help us in doing different things. So as you can see, currently there are 3 tasks. So there is one that is delete folder. So where it is helping currently, if you see, there is a functionality in schedules. So you can go ahead and download a manifest. So the whenever we in our test, we are also testing the same. Now once that manifest is downloaded, as a part of the test cleanup, we are also deleting that particular file or folder. So in that case, this particular task help us. Now what we are thinking is, we are also thinking of adding a task for seeding a MongoDB before and after our test cases. So for example, in case you need some collection to be present in the MongoDB before even starting the test, you can just run that function to seed the MongoDB with by giving a collection name or by giving a DB, and the corresponding a JSON file, because MongoDB can take the JSON file as a seeding document. So that is something that we are thinking on the future aspect of our test cases. So now that like that this was all on the API test that we have. And as Amit has already shown, that we have dashboard here. So currently this dashboard doesn't have the pipeline for API test. As I said, we are still in the development mode, but that once that a particular pipeline is stable and ready to be in the dashboard, that particular pipeline will also be available in the same dashboard, and you will be able to see the results of it. Like this, why are you providing this dashboard? So for example, if I come here and check different things, I'll just show you. So there is a like a button that where we can check the logs as well. So this is the Chaos Center related pipeline. So then this pipeline was just ran 8 hours ago. So these are the nightly nightly builds pipeline which are running. So if I just click on this line, so these are different steps that we have. So if you see, these tests that we have currently, these are not actually related to which environment you are running, right? Now for example, you can what we are doing currently here, we have 6 pipelines running and 6 jobs as a part of this pipeline. So we have cluster scope mode using node port, cluster scope mode using ingress, cluster scope mode using load balancer. Now same thing goes for namespace scope mode using node port, using ingress, and using load balancer. So we are doing 6 setups, and on the all the 6 setup, we are doing the same test to have the confidence in our Chaos Center. Now if you're interested in checking the logs, so this one is for cluster scope mode using node port. So you can come here and check different logs. So for example, there is a step for running basic tests. Basic tests are the login test and the onboarding related tests. So you can come and click on this, and you will be able to see different logs which are going in here, and this is currently in the process of development. Now this is all, and as you can see, there is a test failing. Why is that? There are some 1 or 2 tests which are little flaky. So, and like where are we actually running our tests? So we are running our test as a part of GitHub Actions. So as you can see, there are different pipelines here, and whose results and logs are getting fetched and stored shown in the dashboard. And if I show you the portal pipeline, so if I click on nightly portal E2E and come here, so as you can see, this pipeline was running 7 or 8 hours ago, and this pipeline had some tests. So as you can see, in cluster mode there were no problem, but in namespace mode there was some flakiness, right? So that's something we are continuously working on. Now that's all. If you look at the contribution side of it, so just a little introduction about the like directory structure as well. So like whatever the fixtures, right? Like for example, you need some data to be there. For example, this is the users .json. So we have some predefined users for us which we want to use for our tests. Then there are some workflow related information. Then there are some teaming related information. Then there are some default workflows which we are using for uploading and testing that functionality. Then there is a JSON for my hub, and then there are error codes which we are having as constant, because like and if we are changing the same thing in the server, we can just come here and change this in one place, and this will work for all test cases. So this is a folder where we are maintaining our predefined data, and then in the integration folder all test cases are there. Then in APIs, so yeah, this one is actually a good thing that I can show you. So for example, if I go in any of the workflow related test, so like doing like automating the same, and scheduling a workflow from the UI or API, and then validating the same on by coming onto the UI and checking the details in the table, that is fine, right? But what we wanted is, we also wanted to check the same thing, if like after scheduling the workflow, is it actually getting scheduled in the cluster, and what is the status of it, right? So for that, we could have used kubectl proxy, or client go, or a client which is written in JavaScript as well is also available. But we thought, for our use case, the best thing that we can do, because like Cypress also provides the functionality to call APIs. That's how we are doing API tests. So why not use the Kube API server? We can just make the different API calls to get different details of a particular workflow or a list of workflows, and do the validation accordingly. So now using these APIs, we also know that after scheduling the workflow, that particular workflow is also getting scheduled on the cluster. So we are doing the validation on the UI, we are doing the validation on the cluster as well. So two, both on both the places we have our validations. And then like you can be doing the same thing multiple times or repeatedly, right? So what we have done is, we have also created some well-defined like functions already. You can use these functions in your test case. You don't have to write these functions again. So depending on the feature, we have divided these functions. So in custom workflow, you might need a function that is tune custom workflow that Amit showed, right? Where you are configuring pros and application namespace, and also this function takes the input as tuning parameters. So those tuning parameters can be hub name, experiment name, context, target, app details, steady state is probe, and then we are providing the envs, right? So all these details you can provide as a part of this argument, and those details will be inputted and saved through the UI. So you just have to call this function with the correct details, and it will do the work for you. Same thing goes for teaming, settings, login, and get started. So this function, this directory contains the custom functions depending on the different features. Then there are plugins. So plugins are generally, currently, like we are not using much plugins. There is only one. I think we are not using any plugin, right? So this is just fine. And then there are some custom commands in case you want to have, which are universal, which can be used in any place. So they reside here, and in pages.js we're just importing those files from the pages directory. So this was it. And in the pipeline, as I showed you, like we are doing the testing on the cluster scope as well as namespace scope. So there are different configuration files for it. So this cypress.prod.json is for the cluster scope, and then there's a different file that is for namespace scope. So in the pipeline, when we are running the test, we use different files for different environment. So that's there. Now one thing that was coming in, because like while even if you're making a query to a QAPI server, you need the RBAC, right? So we had to use this RBAC. Like this is something, as you can see, we are providing the start, because this is a test pipeline. It's not much of a security. So we are creating a cluster and destroying it in the pipeline itself in the GitHub runner. So it's not much of a thing, but yeah, like this can be optimized as well. But yeah. So this is all from my side. And also, in case you are looking more onto the contribution side, there is a contributing.readme.md inside the Cypress folder. You can look into it. All the steps are here present. So if you are, if you want to contribute, you're always welcome to contribute in this repo as well. So, and last thing, because like with our continuous efforts in the API test, we are also maintaining an issue, like whatever the issues we are finding in our test cases in our APIs, they are getting marked here. So all the repo, all the test case, all the, I would say, issues that we have found in our APIs currently, or there are some of them which have been fixed as well, but they will be marked one in once we have tested them. So these are all the issues that we have found till now in our APIs. So this will be, you can also check here in case you want to track issues in our APIs. So this was all from my side. Yeah. If you have any questions, I can take them. Okay, I think there are no questions. I will just stop sharing. And thanks everyone for being with me. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Vedant, for joining in, and Pratik, thanks a lot for joining in. I think the other community members left as we extended time, but Pratik, you can just introduce yourself a little bit to the community, and then we can wrap up the call.
Yeah, I work for Daimler, so Ajesh knows me. So we have communicated earlier on our custom experiment development, and we are implementing this as a product in our in-house tool, and we are running through these experiments. So yeah.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Pratik, for tuning in, and I hope this was fruitful for you.
Yes,
And looking forward to having you joining more chaos engineering meetups in
sure.
the future.
Yes, yes, brother. Thank you all.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks everyone for joining in. I hope you have a good rest of the weekend, and looking forward to seeing you in the next community calls and chaos engineering meetups. Thanks everyone. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.